Welcome back to the What Did You Think podcast, episode
30,
32,
32.
possibly
I'm going with it.
32. Yes, it's been a while. It's been a while.
been
As you
a
can see, I wore my
while.
name tag here just in case someone forgot my name. And then that was the bit. That was the bit.
That was the
Also-
whole bit.
That
For
was the whole bit.
context,
So
we have structured our entire upload schedule around Ben saying, I have a really good bit. So the reason you're seeing this at the time you're seeing this is because of, I say it was worth it. I really do. I'd say it was
I
worth it.
think so. What's
Really?
funny is that like I told Sarah, I was like, "Oh, I have this funny joke I've written down." Like, so I don't know,
Oh,
Cameron,
no.
you probably don't have this experience, but David, do you? I mean, I know you're a teacher, but do you like outside of class? Do you make speeches sometimes to like adults?
Not very often. I don't. Ironically enough, and one of my students this year called me out on it. I'm not a fan of public speaking. Like I really get nervous and don't like public speaking. And this kid was like, "Did you have a podcast and you speak for a living?" I was like, "You are correct."
Yeah, I too I'm really
don't love
scared
it.
of public speaking. But
That surprises me because you're like one of the
no,
most outgoing people I've ever met.
that was just another joke I had written down.
Oh, shoot.
No. Well,
Okay.
so what I was gonna say, since like I have to speak here and there, like I'm not no motivational speaker. I quit that a long time ago. But when like I do have to speak because I do coach basketball now, I find it that like I'm totally fine speaking with peers, like friends and all that, because I'm fine if my joke doesn't fail because it's whatever, we're all friends. But the first time I actually had to like speak in public was like a few months ago when the like basketball season ended and I had to like speak at awards. So I was like kind of worried because Ellie goes up there because Ellie was also a coach and Ellie gives this like really beautiful speech. It's like super sweet, kind of sad. I'm like, I love all these kids. Like she wrote down stuff, and I see her like scrolling on her phone while she's writing. And I forgot about it. Like I found out the day of, like, oh, by the way, you're gonna be making a speech while handing out these awards. I was like, oh, okay. So I like just came up with random stuff as I was up there. Thankfully, people were laughing because I don't know what else. But I called the kids stupid at one point. Like these are middle schoolers. I was like, teachers, I have respect for you because if
To
your
be
kids
fair,
are
middle
acting up and
schoolers
I was
pretty
like, if your
stupid
kids are being
sometimes.
stupid, I just make them run. But um, no,
I was
like I
the only
was
form of prep that Ben did was like the night before at like midnight. He like got on an Xbox party with some of the boys and was like, guys, I need some quote for this speech. And the only quote he was offered was "Good soldiers follow orders," but
like I put that
From
in a
the
middle
Clone
school.
Wars.
yeah.
Yeah. Uh, but speaking of war, um,
Segue. Whoa.
no,
Yeah, that was
speaking of
perfectly
war.
planned.
So as you guys know, as everyone knows, the Barbie Oppenheimer premiere happened not so long ago. You know, it's I think the biggest reason why I was so excited for these movies was the fact that like the exact opposite was also premiering the same day. I think that's like so
Right.
amazing. So of course, we all had to go. And not just us three. It was like a huge group. We had quite a bit of people.
It's one of the biggest
Um,
groups I've ever been like planned to go to the movies with, I think.
it was like Cameron knew more than three people in the room, which is crazy. So, but
Ha 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 ha. I knew
uh,
Josh Peck. I knew Josh Peck was gonna be there.
I was gonna say like the amount of like child actors in this movie was kind of crazy of like Roderick and well Josh Beck.
Yeah.
Like when we get into like the cast later, I think it better like whoever was not in Oppenheimer was in Barbie. Like
I think
there's
all of
so many
Hollywood.
people. Also, we're as you can tell we haven't done this in a while. We have a special guest today.
I,
um
to be honest, I didn't think anything of it.
we just well, all the way from that shady Buffalo land. Here
Yes,
is that shady Buffalo himself, Mr. David Cole.
I had to get on a plane and fly from that shitty Buffalo land, and then I had to ride a rocket through the space, and then I had to get on
Yes.
some rollerblades, and then I made it here to What Did You Think
Well,
land.
to understand that episode, that reference, you got to check out that Shady Buffaloes episode where,
Yes.
oh, Cameron, you and I are also on that.
Yeah. We're
Yes.
having a
Crossover.
crossover
Double
collab
feature.
double
Yeah.
feature. Where right
So
after this
Cameron,
episode, you can go see that one, or right after that one, welcome for showing up here.
yeah. So Cameron, without spoiling it, how was it being on David's podcast?
Oh,
That we
it,
haven't reported yet.
I mean, honestly, it was
What?
probably
It's so great.
of the podcasts that I've been on, it's definitely in the top two, I'd have to say.
Yeah. So before we get into the movie, I know I already did the segue. I've been listening to and watching the Smart List podcast. Have you guys heard of that?
Oh, that's also in my top two. So I guess this one's in
Okay.
my. I guess this one's not in it. That's
Well, like
crazy.
to explain it really quickly, they have a random celebrity guest on like every episode, and it's like it works because they're all famous. And I was like, oh, that'd be such a cool thing to implement into our episode. And then I realized like we're not famous at all, so it'd just be like Cameron's brother on for like the fifth
Yeah.
episode in a row, be like special guest Eli.
You know him. You love him.
You know him from the Women Talking episode. No, so I'm tired of talking. Someone else talk. We watched
Well, I got bad news,
Oppenheimer. That's
Ben.
what we're talking.
So
We're gonna
so
be talking for about an hour.
had you guys ever done a double feature like this before?
No, this was actually uh when we planned like a year like in advance, or
Forever ago.
whenever they announced the release dates, was like that week we planned to make this a double feature. I intentionally decided to not do a double feature in the time before that, so this would be my first.
That's hilarious.
And he's so
Um,
lucky. Sorry, go ahead.
no, you're fine. I have done a double feature. Um, it's not quite on the level of Oppenheimer and Barbie. So I was raised that going to the theaters was not okay. And I went, my uncle and aunt took me to Disney World for like graduating high school, even though it was the summer before my senior year.
Oh, nice.
So they took me and my aunt's brother, who was basically my age, he's more like a cousin, but he's technically not, or whatever. So we went with my uncle and aunt to Disney World, and they did at least one point have like a theater in there, and they had an arcade and all this different stuff. And we went and saw two movies in the theater, and they were my first two movies ever in the theater, and it was
Whoa.
a double feature, and it was Casino Royale, which is still
Uh,
one of
That
my
is
favorite movies of
amazing.
all
That
time.
is amazing. That's such a good first
However,
movie.
though, it's maybe one of my favorite movies of all time still, and so like definitely was happy to have that be my first movie in theaters. However, the double feature was Aragon, the dragon movie.
Oh my, you know what's crazy? If you waited like a
So
few years later, you would have seen Quantum Solace, which is like
not
so much
yeah,
worse
not quite
than
the same,
Casino Royale.
but I will say this is probably a better double feature overall. But yeah,
Well, I
so
will say I'm trying to get Cameron to watch the James Bond movies,
yeah,
especially
Yeah,
the Daniel Craig ones.
haven't
Like,
seen
yeah.
James
but I
Bond,
think
haven't seen Mission Impossible. All the good spy stuff. Other than Spy
I
Kids, I
know.
haven't seen it.
Other
Well,
than
there you
Spy,
go.
you're missing out. My double feature was my first double feature. Unlike you, David, I was kind of raised. I think I'm the only one here that was like raised with like, yeah, everyone says movies are bad, but we're
But
still gonna go. Like
we're just
my
gonna be
first
quiet about it.
right. My first movie theater experience was Monsters versus Aliens, the animated movie.
Mm.
Yeah,
Um with like Seth Rogen and
yeah.
other people. Uh and like I remember having a blast, that's what really sparked my love for movies.
Monster, dude, I can't wait for you to become like a world famous movie critic or like a director or something, and someone's like, "What really sparked?" Like you make your Fablemans,
Yeah.
and then
my
it starts with you watching Monsters versus
watching
Aliens.
monsters. But I kid you not though, the scene that's always implemented in my mind is like the president playing the piano in front of the alien bean thing. Anyways, I've only seen it once. um my first double feature was Guardians of the Galaxy, which was like amazing. I loved it. And then Michael Bay's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That's not a bad double
Which
feature.
Yikes.
okay, but it is though.
Listen.
Like
Michael Bay Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle as like a little kid. That's a
Well,
pretty good
okay.
movie. That's a pretty good
Yeah.
little
movie.
kid Cameron, you and I were probably like 16 or 17.
No, if it came out Guardians,
That's
Guardians is
2014.
2014. I was 11.
What? I was 12.
I'm
No
19
way.
right now. You're saying I'm 19 right now, and you're saying that like I don't know, 9 years ago I was 17.
Okay, that is crazy though. There's no way it's 9 years ago because I remember it like yesterday watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Michael Bay. Uh, yeah. Okay. Well, the movie sucked. Like it was. I remember because I remember like being tripped out by watching like Guardians. I love it. I'm like, oh my goodness. And so you know how good a movie is when you forget you're like watching a movie and it's like almost becomes real to you in a sense. Like the story is so genuine and neat.
Yeah.
And then I'm watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I'm thinking so technically. This is before I thought like technical about movies. I'm thinking like, wow, this camera's moving a lot. Like, wow, that's interesting. And I just remember like getting sick because I'm just like, because Michael Bay does a lot of like shaky cam stuff. I remember like, oh, this is, I think like the sixth fart joke wasn't the funniest. Like,
Bro,
no,
I'm not gonna
but
lie, dude. That elevator beatbox scene changed my perspective on the world.
MC Mikey,
I also watched that movie in theaters. I had a blast. I still remember that part where they're fighting Shredder and it like goes slow-mo and like the knives are going like they're
yeah.
getting blocked by the katana and they're like, oh no, the red one is gonna die. It's like
That's a
I,
good segue to actually this week's episode, Teenage
you,
Mutant. Uh, yeah.
If you've
No,
seen the title of this episode and you're confused, so are we.
yeah. So are we. So are we. Yeah, we are the number one podcast involving Michael Bay Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So,
Probably.
anyways, uh let me bring all right, so I have Oppenheimer pulled up here. I think we
Yeah.
should jump into it. So yeah, Cameron, do you want to introduce this episode since we do have Cillian Murphy here?
I mean, yeah, sure. So Oppenheimer, directed by Christopher Nolan, stars Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Robert Downey Jr., and 80% of Hollywood. Uh, and we're not going to go through everyone else, but
There are tons of people.
yeah,
Tons.
But
there are so many people, but there's really one person in this movie. All right, this is Cillian Murphy's movie. He I've seen so many interviews with the cast and stuff, and they all said that the script was it was so weird because the script was written in the first person from Oppenheimer's perspective, and they were told from the minute that they were like trying out for their roles, or I don't know if they were tried out or if they were asked, but for as early as they were involved, they were told that they needed to look for actors who wouldn't have big egos because this was going to be Cillian Murphy's movie, and they all had to help him have the best performance possible.
Wow.
wow. I will
I mean, it
say,
worked.
speaking of who is, yeah, like Cillian Murphy is incredible, and we'll get into that in a second. But like you said, 80% of Hollywood's in this, except for Michael Caine.
Michael
Oh,
No
Caine,
Michael
yeah.
Caine in a Chris Nolan movie.
that
I
would have
think
been
it's
right
the
in the
only
bye
one except for Following, and maybe he probably
Tenet,
isn't.
I don't think he was in Tenet.
He's in Tenet. He's the guy. He's like the old British man that the protagonist goes to see right before
You're right.
he meets
Yeah.
with the wife of the bad guy. I don't remember
His
his name
voice
now.
is in Dunkirk also.
Yes, and I don't think he's in Insomnia. But other than that, I think it's like all
Yeah.
but two of
It's
his
weird.
or three now, I guess.
It
I mean,
feels like something was missing.
I will say he probably knew the original Oppenheimer in person.
Yeah, I can't be in.
And so
I can't be in this movie.
he
It's too
was
personal for me.
yeah. He was born in 1933. He's not going to be acting in a lot for much longer.
Wow,
That
that's
is
crazy.
crazy.
Oh wait, I
That
think
is
he retired.
actually
I actually think he retired. I think I read that somewhere.
Oh, I hadn't heard that. Wow. Okay.
I'll fact check
Michael
myself,
Caine.
but you guys can keep the
No,
conversation
he
going.
was that is insane.
Yeah.
Man. Well, anyways,
Oh, he's not
uh,
retiring. Okay, never mind.
just made
False
it up.
alarm. False alarm.
Yep.
I think
Phew.
you're mistaking him for Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer's
He's
retired.
Oh,
definitely retired.
true. Yeah.
No, so Cillian Murphy is him and Robert Downey Jr. I think are like the most like honestly the most grounded and like real performances I've seen in a movie in a while, where it's like it doesn't require on them like yelling into a camera, breaking you know what I mean? Where it's like seems like all these movies are like times actors weren't acting, and it's like
Yeah.
them accidentally cutting their hand. Like, yeah, those are all great performances, but I think it's something so subtle about like Cillian Murphy looking like he legitimately got, bit by a spider, and he's just like confused the whole time. Like you can definitely tell he's like seen some stuff
Yeah.
just with his facial expressions. It's just, I mean, he's incredible in this, and I've only seen him from like a few things. Uh, 28 Days Later,
Mostly Nolan movies.
yeah, mostly Nolan movies. Well, and what's funny is that like he's in one of the most famous shows right now, or not
Peaky
anymore, but Peaky Blinders,
Blinders.
and I never even heard of that till last year.
It's
Like when
I
it
British.
haven't
was
watched it.
over,
It's
like I
British.
haven't seen it either.
Yeah.
It's British, that's why I
Yeah.
haven't.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah. One of the things I loved about his performance, if we're to kind of piggyback off of that, is that like kind of like what you were saying, but I love when an actor can tell the like can give you characterization, right? Can give you this is how my character is feeling, or this is my character's opinion on something without saying a word. And he does that
mhm,
really well, like the entire movie. He has plenty of lines. He's like the main character of the movie, as we've kind of already said.
mhm,
But he's often reacting to things with the camera just slowly zooming in on his face, and so you
yeah,
get time to see his reactions, and he's very expressive with that. And I don't want to spoil stuff yet, so I'll stay off of that. There's one particular scene where his words and his face are not lined up in terms of
Yeah.
his emotions, right? So he's saying one thing with one kind of emotion while his face is giving a completely opposite emotion, and it's just like mind-blowing acting.
yeah. No, and it's
Unfortunately,
like
that scene is brought down by the historical inaccuracies of the American flag not having 48 stars instead of 50, which makes this
I've
movie a
seen the
2 out of
video.
10.
Have
Sorry, two
you?
out of 10.
One for every
You had
star they
one
forgot.
job.
I saw that, like I saw a video like that, and I also saw a video where I think it was like a BBC radio host, and his like this nerd friend was like, so the whole like length of the film for Oppenheimer is 11 miles, and it takes you 3 hours to walk 11 miles. So technically it'll take you 3 hours to walk all of Oppenheimer. I'm like, okay, thanks for that. Thanks
Cool.
for that fact. Like, but anyways. Oh yeah, Killian's a goat in this. So good. Everyone is super good in this. I would say like,
I
oh, I don't know.
actually, me and Isaac were talking. I agree that
I disagree. I
99.98 of the
disagree with
people in
you on
this
what you're about to
movie,
say. You
I
pig.
think I think that Benny Safdie's performance was good, but his accent was not.
I totally disagree. I disagree completely. I think Benny Safdie is amazing, and I
You
think he's
would,
incredible in
but that's just
this.
because his name is Ben. It's
And
literally
who
it.
else's name has been?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
You have a
I'm not Benny
bias.
Safdie. I'm not Benny Safdie. But hear me out. Obviously, that's debatable, and we're not a debate podcast. But I, to give my rebuttal, I will say I think Benny Safdie is really good in this movie, and one of the like few scientists I really enjoyed. Everyone else I felt like was so one noted, not in a bad way, because like you
Wow,
only
you
have
hate
so
the
much
movie?
time. But you only have so much time. You can't go in depth for every single character that is in this movie. But like I think for one, I don't know, I enjoyed him a lot. And I don't think he was the worst in this movie. I think Florence Pugh is worse than him. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a
Whoa,
bad
okay.
thing.
We're getting too specific too early. All right, let's talk a little bit more broad. Let's talk a little bit more general.
Okay. A little bit more general in the plus side of things. I mentioned Robert Downey Jr. Uh I think this is
Is
his first movie since the MCU that I've actually felt like, oh, I'm not watching Tony Stark in a weird way. And
Somebody
I
didn't
hate
watch Doolittle then, I guess.
I hate characterize or I hate like pushing actors to one character that they've played, because I know Robert Downey Jr. is a great actor. it's just for him, when you've played a character for so long, it is hard for you to go out of that role in a sense and play like someone else. Like he was Sherlock, but do people like see him as Sherlock? I think he's like I think he was great in Zodiac. I think he's really good, but I think when this movie, I like forgot I'm watching Robert Downey Jr. and I'm just watching this like incredible performance.
I agree.
Other actors that are good in the movie.
Yeah.
The person that I think I was the most surprised by, just mostly because I don't think he's ever been in a good movie, is Josh Hartnett. Like, has he ever been in a good movie?
I'm looking him up
Oh,
right now.
Like, he was in one of the Die Hard sequels. No, no, sorry, he was in Die Hard. He was in Die Hard with Kevin Hart.
Uh,
I'm sure it's great.
oh,
He, I mean, like, I know him. I saw him in the movie. It's like, oh, that's Josh Hart or Josh Hartnett. But I was not like,
I've
oh,
literally never heard of this
weird.
guy.
Yeah,
yeah, he
I've
was
not
in
either.
probably his most famous movies would be Lucky Number 11, which is okay. It's old. It's from '06. So, I mean, for me, it wasn't that old, but whatever. And then he was in a vampire movie that actually is probably his best movie. But it isn't great. Oh, he's in Sin City, which I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's solid. But
I
again,
heard it's
like,
good.
oh no, actually, I'm sorry. He is in one good movie. I forgot he was in Black Hawk Down. So
Yeah.
that's actually a good movie. But
Uh,
so this is his second good movie.
I think another performer, I've got two on my mind besides Roderick and Josh Peck, is that Jason Clark is in this. Jason Clark is one of
Yes.
those
Oh
actors
man,
that
he
I
was
feel
so
like is
good.
in a million movies and you never know his name. And
exactly.
Jason Clark, though, for once, like he's not a bad actor at all, but I think he is so good in this, and he plays such an infuriating role to where
Yeah.
it's like you are just against him from the moment you
Yeah.
see him, and he plays it so well, and every single time he's on the scene in this on the screen is one of my favorite scenes.
Hmm.
Like the whole final hour of this movie, obviously not getting into
Yeah.
detail, is
Yeah.
possibly my favorite hour that like I've seen this year in a movie. I think it's
Yeah.
so good.
I
And
remember. I remember. Like I've always thought that same thing. Like whenever you think about actors who like are in everything but no one knows them, I think the
mhm,
go-to answer is Alan Tudyk, and I think
yeah,
people know him enough as the people don't know about. I think Jason Clark is the real Alan Tudyk, as in he's in
He
I
everything. But I
I
just
specifically know him because of the Planet of the Apes movie that he was in. And I loved that movie. So then I never forgot him, but I think most people would not be able to pull his name.
right, but they
But
would definitely know his face.
oh, for sure, he has a pretty unique face. So it's like
Yeah,
not in a bad way or anything. It's just like his hair and his like facial structure is kind of a unique combination. I feel like.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, he was incredible. He definitely stood out. And what I liked about, I feel like since Planet of the Apes, he's kind of been typecast to some extent. A lot of the movies that he's been in since then are kind of just like kind of generic protagonist guy, like just nice guy, whatever. And in this movie, he has a lot more to do.
hmm
And he's given a lot more in his role in terms of like acting things to do, like not just like, hey, just be the nice guy who's gonna be like the blanket boring protagonist, just like,
Mhm.
be another character. And he has a lot to do and it's very enjoyable. So he definitely was one of the top, maybe 4 or 5 in this movie.
Oh yeah. And I think the final person that I was like super hyped about, and it wasn't till the end, was Rami Malek, where like he says nothing for the whole movie. And then when he like finally opens his mouth, I think is one of the most hype moments in the movie. And honestly, like just got me so into it even more. Like
I just kept saying like, why did they get him for this role? Because he just didn't have anything to do. And I was like, why did they
they
get
could
him
have
for this
gotten
movie? And it could
anybody.
have been me. It could have been
yeah.
anybody.
Just David.
They could have been Drake Bell, and we would have had Drake and Josh back
No, it
together
couldn't have
again.
been
No,
Drake Bell.
I think Drake
It
Bell's
could
not going
not
to be
have
in.
been.
No
But
Drake Bell for
It's
a while. I
like
think.
the scene he's in. He's like, oh no, I can't.
Stop.
Anyways,
But yeah, I will say, I think this is not exclusive to this movie. This is anything Rami Malek has ever been in. He
Mhm.
always looks like he's really cold. He looks freezing all the time.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I can get a blanket.
uh, but
Uh,
I think if we went down every single actor who was in this, I think we would
Yeah.
say a lot of the same thing, which is that they did a really good job. Um, some characters you can't really necessarily be like, wow, they were great, but that's because there's so many people in this movie that not everyone gets their time to shine. For a 3 hour long movie, there's so many characters, they still don't get a lot of time. So I think another important thing to ask, which was really pushing the marketing, do you guys think that it's important to see this on the biggest screen possible?
Ooh, good question.
On the
Because I
biggest screen
know,
possible, I
right,
don't think so. But
I know that's
I
been
think it's
pushed a
important to see in the
lot.
theaters.
I have a friend who literally went to Ohio. He went out of state to go see it in like an IMAX 70 millimeter
Hmm.
like actual film IMAX thing.
Hmm.
That's really cool. I don't think it's necessary.
That's crazy because I'm seeing it tomorrow at the Indiana State Museum in IMAX and 70 millimeter. Now, here's the
Nice.
thing. I'm wanting to, so for the sake of movies, yes, see it on the biggest screen possible. But if we're talking by like actual like technicalities on should you see this on the biggest screen possible, for me, I disagree in a sense. I think you need, I agree with David where I think you need to see this in theater. I think you should see every movie in theaters just for the sake of like supporting movies. But with this, especially, I think with like how much work was poured into this, and we're gonna get into cinematography in a second because I want to talk about it. But especially with how beautiful this movie looks, I think bigger the better always, especially with like how drastically different the scales are when it comes to these different scenes. I always love watching movies in film, especially like movies that were made for film.
Yeah.
But like if you need to see it that big, I don't think
I would
so.
say I don't know. I have a personal thing where I'll almost never watch a movie on my phone. I couldn't imagine being the person who made it, pouring their heart and soul into something, and then walking into somebody and they're just watching it on their phone, like up to their face. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, the artist. But no, I'm just joking.
Yeah, I've
But
never seen a movie
um,
on my phone
I
before.
do try to watch movies in their original aspect ratio if I can. And I think this is one of those examples where you're probably going to be fine not seeing it that way because the original aspect ratio is so hard to come across in like a specific screen or whatever. And there are movies that benefit from a larger screen, like Dune or even Gravity. I think those are
Avatar.
Avatar, either of them. Yeah, those are like movies where you want to see, you want that to take up as much of your vision as possible. This movie is 98% boardrooms. All right, you don't need it to be on a
Yeah.
big screen. Not that it's bad.
Right.
We all love ourselves a good Succession every now and then, but I wouldn't say you need to watch Succession or you don't need to watch Oppenheimer on the big screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I mentioned before with the cinematography, I think Nolan has always made pretty movies. Like they're always great to look at. And I think this one, and because I just recently I watched Dunkirk the day we were gonna go see Oppenheimer. So because I wanted to like, because David already knows this because Dave and I were talking, and has been kind of like passive aggressively making fun of me for not watching The Dark Knight and stuff like that.
For sure.
So what do I do since I haven't watched The Dark Knight? I watched Dunkirk. And you know I'm saving the
They're pretty
best for last.
interchangeable. Yeah.
I mean, it's a great movie. So is Dark Knight.
I
So
I thought it was fine. But that's for another episode. No, and so I watched Dunkirk and like the whole thought process I have while watching Dunkirk is like, wow, this looks great. This is so good. Like this is really amazing to watch. And then with this movie, like somehow watching people in a boardroom is so exciting, looks so great, so fascinating, and gets you on the edge of your seat somehow, even though they're talking about the like what is a useless thing. You know what I mean? It's like they could be talking about a fair and they somehow make this scene look so like insane and like just complement the story in itself. So shout out to the cinematographer. I'm definitely gonna botch his name. Is Hoyt van Hoytema. Uh, I mean, he is great behind the camera. The director of photography is like incredible, and I think every scene involving like, I don't want to get too far into spoilers at all, but you guys definitely know like the aftermath of the explosion, and how it affects Oppenheimer and the way that they visually show that too, I think is so genius with like lighting and such. Uh, and it's I don't know. I think it's just great. I don't know if you have anything more to add on that, but I just feel like if we are talking about the greats of this movie, I feel like that has to be mentioned.
For sure. It definitely needed to be. And I think what kind of blew me away so much of the time was that Nolan claims there's no CGI in the movie. And I'm just like, you're a liar.
Like, okay, well, no, that's a good question because like
I see when
there's
he says
definitely
that I don't think he means he actually dropped a bomb, like an atom bomb.
Oh no, of course not. But I think that he mean well, no. I mean, I think he means, and he maybe means there is some touch up CGI. Maybe he
there
means that,
there
but like
has to be. There
there
has
has
to
to be
be.
some touch up. But even if he said even if he means that, it's still kind of there's still things that I'm seeing that I'm like, how is that not CGI? Like how
So
and I don't want to
what
spoil
is
stuff because it's like there's things in the movie that I
If
didn't
we
know would be in there that aren't really super big spoiler stuff, but there's like
Yeah.
things that you wouldn't think of that happened recurring in the movie. And it was a way they kind of showed Oppenheimer's frame of mind in the moment. And I was like, how is that not and
You
what
know,
and also
I
why
know
not
exactly what you're
against
talking about.
CGI?
I know exactly what you're talking about, and
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. I think that's possible because you keep
Yeah.
in
It's just
mind
like
like
what why did you work
uh
that hard?
original Star Wars like made without
Okay, yeah.
CGI. You know the
Yeah.
if you see how they did the text crawl and all that stuff, or
Yeah.
even surprisingly, I just found this out recently. The Windows 10 background is not CGI. That's an actual picture. So it's
Yeah.
definitely possible to make
wait, the
those.
field, the hill?
Yes.
No, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no.
Oh.
The blue window, like Windows 10, the
Oh.
newest one.
Oh, the new one. Oh,
Um,
huh.
yeah, I like
Okay.
anyway,
No, I'm just
anyway,
kidding.
I'm just saying like it's definitely
Bro
possible
thinks he's
to
Chris Nolan.
it's
Really?
possible
Really,
to
Bill
make
Gates?
those abstract
Uh,
more visuals
yeah.
without
So
computer.
fun little Ben fact. During the movie, since I'm a nerd, I told Sarah because throughout the movie they show sparks and they show that like blue star stuff. Does that make sense? You guys know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about?
That's what I
Yes.
was
So
talking
That's what
about.
we've been talking
I
about,
just
yeah.
didn't like say it.
so the
It's in like the
blue
first 30
star
seconds.
stuff, the blue star stuff is a very interesting thing that 2001: A Space Odyssey does a lot. And what they do is it is black liquid, like black ink or something, with colored little droplets of different colored ink. And what they do is they can move that around or funnel it. And when they start funneling it with a hole, it looks like you're in space or something with like moving. And 2001 does that a lot with like just to make something look abstract and neat. And then the
Mhm.
sparks, I don't know how you get the sparks. I'm gonna be honest. Like, oh, like it just seems like why. I get your question though. Why not do it in CG? Like, how pretentious do you have to be?
Is it
And I
pretension?
mean this respectfully, but like,
Listen,
I
Yeah.
feel like you would
I don't
save
think
so much
Christopher
time.
Nolan is against CGI. Inception
No,
is
me neither.
is my reference right there.
I mean, go
But
watch Tenet.
yeah, I right there's
Right,
it's not that he's like a anti CGI kind of thing. I think it's just this movie is like very grounded in reality, and it's you need to make a point that this isn't a fictional story. These
right,
bombs and these people and these things are all real and have
Mhm.
real effects. And so if you can go on press and say, it's all real, so we made it all real.
right. I also think like a little bit to blame is Interstellar in a sense, where like the whole cornfield chase. Have you seen it, Cameron?
Nope.
Dude.
I'm lacking on my Nolan. I've seen the
So,
Batman's, this, and Inception.
but I'm sure. Have you heard of the cornfield chase?
Um, I mean, as an Indiana resident, I think it's hard to go too long without hearing every corn fun fact possible. So yes,
So,
I know of the corn. I know of the corn chase.
like, I kind of blame that where it's like it's become a common thing where if you're ever watching Interstellar with someone who hasn't seen it, you always say like, you know, Nolan didn't want to use CGI in this scene, so they just planted a bunch of corn. Like, I don't know. But also
Yeah,
Interstellar
but also
has
they made profit on that.
they
They
did?
sold all the corn they
They
didn't
sold the
run
corn.
over, and then they made profit on that scene.
That's amazing. That is so funny. But yeah, I don't know. Like
This is why he's the best right now.
Yeah.
I'm not against CGI at all.
No,
Like I mean, like I love Avatar. I think Avatar is great.
That was
But
I mean,
it's
I would
incredible
like
prefer
too.
to have movies like this more often, to be fair. I just felt like it was like you had to I don't think it was necessary to go this far with the no CGI thing. Like I like
right,
having more practical in anything. As much as you can. But it's like at some point, is it not more profitable? Maybe I'm just wrong.
I see
Right.
both
It-
sides.
Well,
I see both sides. I see the why not, but then I also see they're going this
For a
far with the
specific.
movie anyway.
Yeah.
yeah.
Why randomly cut this corner? Which
Yeah.
is
Well, there's
how
also
confusing.
pros and cons to everything too, because like the original Star Wars is so charming because it's miniatures, and it's obvious that they are miniatures, but it doesn't look bad
What?
because it's
I'm just
like,
joking.
but it's like it's because it's like, oh, it's an old movie and it makes sense, and the fact that they were able to do this is so cool. But like if we were to use miniatures now,
I didn't
would
think when I'm watching this movie, I'm not thinking they should have done that with computers.
Yeah, no, I'm
yeah,
not at all
right.
either.
I think
It
that
doesn't
what they
feel like
did
it
is
is.
absolutely fine. And who knows, maybe if they did CG, it could have been bad. I don't know. I'm not a VFX artist. If I was, I would still be here. But I'm just saying, like, I would be able to provide more input.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Christopher Nolan is one of those directors who I think is like associated. When you think Christopher Nolan, you think like scale, like massive, massive movies. Christopher Nolan, James Cameron, Ridley Scott, all of these are kind of they're defined by how grandiose their movies can be. And so what I was actually surprised with this is how yes, the implications and the real world like consequences of these characters' actions is the biggest they've ever been. But in terms of like what like the scene by scene visuals, it's pretty small scale. And he is
Mm-hmm.
still able to get those massive emotions out of the audience that you would get with like a Interstellar or an Inception.
Right. And to add on or to piggyback, I guess, speaking of like visuals, I think I'm super glad that they didn't show Hiroshima like in this movie. I think the fact that like we know what happened, B, it would be kind of like a bad taste in the mouth if it were to be shown. And I think also Oppenheimer never saw it.
You
You know
need
what I
that,
mean?
yeah, you
Yeah.
need that separation.
And the fact that he never saw it, but he hears about it on the radio and he what his work did, it like that's another thing that just sends him into this whole like
Yeah.
devastating like arc.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do feel like it might have been seen as like almost trying to bait the audience, like trying to make them like force an emotional reaction instead of just
Yeah.
creating it naturally. Which
Well,
this movie does really
also,
well.
I
So
I think like you're trying Nolan, a British director, is trying also not to and trying to be as least like non-offensive as possible when making a movie about war. Like I believe the movie was already banned in Japan like before it even came out.
wow.
I read that. I don't know if that's like don't quote me on it, but I believe
Sure.
that like this movie already had like issues coming out because of the subject matter. And I don't know. I mean, I'm just glad.
really appreciated, and I thought it was like so haunting that like
Mhm.
the all the conversation about Hiroshima, it's not like you don't even get like an aerial view of it. It's all
Yeah.
just board meetings. People, I think one of my strongest reactions is when they're talking about they're trying to select the target cities
Yep.
Ugh,
Yeah.
and just
such
the
a
how
gross
matter of
scene.
fact and separated all those characters are. It's so
Yeah.
it's
The
so
fact that
awful.
they're choosing on like who to kill. It is like without saying it blatantly, like, yeah, let's kill all these people. Like everyone knows this in the back of their mind, but like I get it. Some are soldiers, some have literally been trained to not have any emotion. I get that. But some people, like Oppenheimer, a scientist, is like a part of this room where it's like we are literally about to shoot. It's like such a gross feeling you have, and then for the guy to like throw in a joke on like, no, we had honeymoon there or something like that. I feel like
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, it's so terrible. But I mean, if I because I also don't know how actual like factual this movie is as far as like a lot of these meetings go.
Yeah.
That is
I'd be
But
that's
surprised if it wasn't pretty accurate, but
well,
who
actually,
that's
knows?
what
here's the
I'm
deal with
thinking.
that. Here's the deal with that. This
Hit us, Cameron.
well, that is going to go into a bit more of spoiler territory. So I think it's
I
been
think
long
we can
enough.
just jump
We
into it.
could give our little I like it a lot. Really good and fantastic. Been quick spoiler free.
Oh, tick tick boom.
Yep. David.
I mean, yes, it's an incredible movie. The fact that I am a huge Nolan fan, that I've always been kind of a Nolan apologist, and I've seen all of his movies at least once. And the fact that I walked out of it thinking this could be his best movie
Yeah.
off one viewing with all the nostalgia baked into The Dark Knight, seeing that with like 10 of my
Hmm.
friends when I was a senior in high school, like all the nostalgia behind seeing Inception the next year or whatever, 2 years later, whenever it was,
Yeah.
a lot of his best movies have tons of nostalgia baked into them for me. And so to be like instant gut reaction for this movie to be like, yeah, it's up there with all those, if not better, is kind of all you need to know in terms of my general thoughts.
Right. No.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
Spoilers.
spoilers, we're not going to
Yes,
do a tangent because we got time. Okay, we got to do this. All right.
do
So,
it.
um,
Accuracy.
the people who've seen the movie would know that it is broken up in scenes that are in color and scenes that are in black and white. Uh, Scenes that are in black and white are objective. This is what happened. Scenes that are in color are subjective. This is how Oppenheimer remembers things or saw things. This is how he saw them. And at first, I didn't think there was too much of a distinction, but then I saw a review, which it's hard for me to want to rewatch a 3-hour movie, but I kind of do. Uh, Oppenheimer comes across differently in the different scenes. He's in the color scenes where it's his subjective point of view. He's more personable. He's more charming. He's more, human. And in the black and white scenes, he's cold, reserved, and to himself. And so, while the objective, this happened at this time with these people, might be true, the actual interaction between everybody, it's Oppenheimer is an unreliable narrator in this movie,
Mm.
and there are questions that characters bring up, like in his fight for changing policy on bombs and stuff. We want to think, just as Oppenheimer probably does, we want to think that it's selfless and it's for the protection of the human race. But then in one of the black and white scenes, somebody says, what if he's just doing it all for the fame? And you're like, maybe not, but also maybe, like,
Yeah.
it adds
Huh.
another element to this already
Yeah.
really depthful movie. And
Right. I
yeah.
also I saw something kind of off topic, and this might be pretentious of me to think. Um, but I think I saw a YouTube video. I can't remember who. This is not my idea, but they compare Oppenheimer to Christopher Nolan's career in a sense where like he's made like these amazing blockbuster movies in a sense with like these star-studded casts and everything, and it's almost like he regrets on what he made, like how he made his movies in a sense, like how they're so big and like must need to go to the theaters, to where like simple movies that are just like shorter films, like hour and a half movies, are like less liked. I think it's a bad take, but I don't
I
know,
could
since we're
see it.
saying it.
I mean, I think I have exactly one example of this, but there seems to be a bit more of a introspective thing going on, like at least with
Hmm.
Asteroid City, is Wes Anderson just taking a look back at his career. Like, I could definitely
Hmm.
see there being an element of Christopher Nolan thinking of his impact on movies as a whole.
Only problem I feel like is if his takeaway is that he's made too many big blockbusters that are too long and full of stars and great actors. I don't know what was this movie?
It's the longest with
Exactly.
the most people.
It's longer than any of his other movies, probably with more big name actors than ever before. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
yeah,
mean,
it's not the story is much more grounded, obviously, in so many ways, and so there probably is some, I don't know, there could be something there, but I don't think all of that is necessarily very
right.
It probably
easy
wasn't
to
at the top of his
see.
mind, but
No,
yeah.
No.
I'm sure.
I
um,
wonder though, like why he made this. Like I'm so curious as to like what a part of like I think this is genius. I think obviously there's like substance here to make a movie
Mhm.
because he did. But like it seems so different to go from what he was making, as far as like he was pretty much in a sci-fi realm
I mean,
with like,
I mean,
you look
Dunkirk
at
fits in this though. So he
yeah,
must have an affinity for
and
World War
that's
II.
true. And that's
he could
true.
just be a history buff, but also, I mean, you look at world events. Maybe he wanted to remind people the destructive power
Yeah.
of
That's true.
this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it definitely could be possible. And I think that like he does lean more sci-fi, obviously. I mean, he definitely does. But I mean, Memento is not sci-fi. Insomnia is
Mm,
not sci-fi. Dunkirk and this movie, there's four, and then and following his first movie. So almost half of his career is not sci-fi.
true.
And honestly, he probably wouldn't have made three Batman movies if he had a choice in the matter, uh, based off of the quality of Dark Knight Rises. And the things I've heard, basically, like I think he had an idea for the third movie that obviously would have heavily involved Heath Ledger. That's not
Oh
possible
yeah.
anymore. I think he probably would have preferred to
Probably
opt
should have
out,
just
to
ended it.
bow out, and the studio obviously is not going to let him do that because
He
they made so
probably
much money
signed
off
a
of him. So
contract that
I'm
like
sure he
marked him
did.
to
So
3 films or something.
Yeah.
I'm sure in his, if he had wanted to, I'm sure if he could have done whatever he wanted to, he probably wouldn't have made that movie just because I know, I mean, it's like not even like a rumor or whatever that he had a good idea that he liked a lot for the third movie, but it did heavily involve Heath Ledger. So I would assume that he just kind of had to go on the fly and change it, and probably would have rather just not made the movie. So I mean,
Right.
yeah, a lot of sci-fi in there, but also a lot of more grounded stuff.
Yeah.
But usually when he does go more grounded, he goes more crime. Like following Memento and Insomnia were all very crime,
Right.
like
Crime rooted.
focused, like noir type crime, gritty dramas.
Right.
And then this is neither of those two things. And Dunkirk is also pretty unique, but it's
Yeah.
obviously
Not
the
to get
content is World War II. So
yeah, not to get too far off track, but is this his second R-rated movie
No,
or
his early
no,
movies
third?
I think
Memento's
Memento
R, but I can't remember if Following or
following is rated
Insomnia
R as
are.
is
well.
it
I'm
okay?
like I'm like
Is Following even a feature? Because I remember that being
It
such a
is
quick
rated R.
movie.
It's an hour and 9 minutes.
Okay,
It
so
is rated R. But it's technically if like it's shown here as like a. It doesn't say because he has some short films, and I have not watched
well,
those.
anything over an
But this
hour, I
is not
believe, is
mentioned.
considered feature, if I'm
Okay,
not
well
mistaken.
then yeah,
yeah,
it's
it
definitely a
depends who you
feature.
ask, but that's a good way to look at it. Yeah, his
Yeah,
first three features are rated R, but then once he got the Batman and more like blockbuster things, he stuck within the PG-13 up until this.
Yeah,
I didn't
I
realize
think.
that Insomnia was rated R.
Yeah, I haven't seen that movie for. Well, okay, we're getting too far off
Anyways,
topic. I'm
yes, we
sorry.
are.
Um, I will say though, speaking of the R rating, I think it's interesting choice because especially coming from what like 6 straight movies, probably plus of just being PG-13, like must be kind of worried on ticket sales dropping. Our movies historically don't perform like as good as PG-13 movies do, and that's just like no brainer there.
I would
So
say right up until the pandemic, our movies had started to become less less impactful on the thing. Like we got Deadpool for was massive, Logan was massive, and then Joker, first R-rated movie to make $1 billion, all that stuff. So it was starting to become more acceptable monetary wise to make an
right,
R-rated movie. But then pandemic happened and then nobody made money. But uh Barbie and Oppenheimer are the opening weekend was the fourth highest earning opening weekend of all time. So
wow.
he's not losing money or losing sleep over this.
Right. And do you think that Barbie is complementing this too, in a sense? Same
Yes,
thing with
100%.
Oppenheimer.
There
Like,
are
I
so many
wonder.
people who would have never watched this that are watching it because of this, and the other way around. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I was not planning on watching Oppenheimer in theaters until it came out at the same time as Barbie. I'm
Wow.
not even joking.
Yeah.
We did say even if like Barbie got delayed a week, we were gonna wait a week to watch them. I
Yeah,
don't know if I would have waited that long. I'm gonna be honest,
I would have
because
because that's
I've
the
seen
only.
I've seen 3 Nolan movies in theaters. Um, Inception. I saw Inception in IMAX. Front row. um,
Wow.
that was not a good
Ooh.
experience. And then I saw Tenet. Some people know my thoughts about Tenet. We're not getting into that.
He loves it,
Um,
just in short.
I watched it with my family, and I thought it was like, oh, confusing. Uh-huh. And then I saw it with Sarah, and then we left halfway through the movie because she did not like it. She was bored. I will say, my wife's movie taste is immature So I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I would never talk bad about you without you being able to defend yourself. So it was a joke. But and then we saw this. Needless to say, I think this is my favorite Nolan movie outside of the Prestige. But going back to the R rating, I think that yes, I think it was kind of a risk, but I think it really works because of how um this movie is not very vulgar at all. They're like cursing is not like super frequent, and maybe it just is going over my head, but I don't remember them like just
It's pretty
cussing all the
rare. It's
time.
pretty rare, and it's also spread out across 3 hours.
Right.
So
I just think that the R rating almost works with, well, first of all, with like the romantic side of Oppenheimer. I think that like those scenes do hit hard, but also just like I think it helps with the rooted and grounded feeling of the movie. I don't know, just like
yeah, I
that's just me.
even with the infrequent language, I feel like if he, because this could very easily be edited into a PG-13, there
Hmm.
might have been some people like, now come on, Nolan, this is a subject matter that probably should have been rated R, even though like it would not be a very different movie. And
Right.
I maybe he just wanted to kind of prevent people from thinking he held back. So he,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think I could see why people would think that he was trying to make a hero out of Oppenheimer.
Right.
If you don't get into the womanizing kind of side of things, right?
Yeah.
Um, and even though, well, I guess we're in spoiler territory. Even though he ended up being able to work things out with his wife, Kitty, it's not even totally clear in this movie whether or not he had one affair or multiple.
Well, they
yeah.
definitely said that he had at least two because like
They make it,
Well,
the
yeah, because he does say,
his
he's
wife
like no, he
was the
never got
product
caught.
of
Like
an
he
affair.
That's true. That's
She was
true.
yeah, he had
married when
three
And
they
yes, that's
affairs.
true. She was
Yeah,
married. Yeah.
three
So
affairs.
so three affairs technically he's a part of.
And
Only
like who
only
knows
two.
how many more.
Yeah, and they call him several times a womanizer, and in the black and white scenes and in the color scenes both. So it's pretty clear that that's a part of who he was. And on top of the fact that he pretty callously went through this, he didn't, he may have had some internal issues dealing with whether or not he's going to create this bomb or not, but he was steady until he fully realized it after the fact, and then was
Yeah.
very like, "Oh God, what have I done?" kind of thing. Which, I mean, that's good for him for coming to that realization. But I think the movie does a really good job of making this complicated character clearly complicated and not being, oh no, he did a good thing for our nation and then he felt bad
Right.
about it because it's a bad thing to kill people, but he's a hero overall. It's like, no, he's just really complicated. He's a hero and a villain and he's all kinds of things. And I think that this movie has all of that in there, which it probably shouldn't. So I think that that maybe is why he just went ahead and leaned into the R rating a little bit, just to go ahead and make sure the message is clear that this guy is good and bad and all kinds of things in
Yeah.
between,
Right.
just like every human is. So
Right.
And
Well,
whatever your opinion of him is, it does make him sympathetic as the position he was put in.
sure,
It's
yeah,
like it's tough, you know.
yeah.
yeah,
Couldn't
yeah,
be
Well,
me.
since we are in the spoiler section, I want to talk about um a few things. But I'm gonna split the movie up into the three acts that it is. So we have the like I call it the classroom act, where it's like Oppenheimer becoming like Oppenheimer. So he is the scientist, he teaches this class, and he's getting his scientist group together. Okay. And then the second act is them at like the grounds, the army camp, and where they set off the first bomb. And then the third act is everything post A bomb and court scenes.
Yep.
I am gonna be honest. I was having a hard time following along in the first act. I was not as into it. I thought the movie was like really loud for some reason. I had like an issue with the sound mixing a bit, but then like as I just like listened and watched the movie, I just kept on like getting more and more into it and like being more and more accepting of like I think it being loud actually works for it because of the chaoticness of what's happening in Oppenheimer's brain. I think it just makes it more stressful. And a big reason I think it works is the score by Ludwig Göransson is like phenomenal.
Yes.
him returning from Tenet. I think my favorite part about Tenet was the score, and Ludwig Göransson is no stranger to making great music with like The Mandalorian, Community, the show. Um, had to add that one in there. But Black Panther, I think that he knows how to make such good like thematic music, and this is no difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The score was really great. And I liked the fact that it kind of has a three-act structure while also giving. I mean, it wouldn't be a Nolan movie without non-sequential, non-linear storytelling,
Yep.
right? I mean,
Right.
I think almost all of his movies, like a more common theme than science fiction being the genre, is the fact that he almost always has some element, at least, of
Right.
non-linear storytelling,
Ironically speaking, I think Interstellar is his most linear movie. I
which
honestly
is
think so.
funny. You do
Probably one of the
get you.
Batmans, if I had to take a
You,
guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess probably the Batman movies, but in
True.
Interstellar, you do have the moment at the end when he's kind of
Okay, no,
Um,
because
right.
Cameron hasn't seen it.
I
But
know I'm not gonna say it. I'm just making
no,
sure
I'm
that
just
you
making sure. I
realize
forgot
that
about that. I forgot
there is
about
a
that
moment
part
at the
though.
end that's definitely not linear.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the Batman movies are probably the best example of that. But even like Dark Knight Rises has a flashback, or
yeah.
several
If we want to
flashbacks.
be really
I mean,
annoying, Inception takes place in like 5 seconds. So
literally.
it all happens pretty quickly.
Yeah, sure. But
um
anyways, I can see why people would say that that'd be hard to follow in this movie because of the fact that it's black and white versus color. I was able, and also I've been watching a lot of Nolan leading up to this. I watched Memento earlier, which I think is actually harder to follow than this movie, which it
I
shouldn't be, but
agree.
it is somehow.
And
So
Memento though,
I
like
enjoyed that.
this movie uses kind of Cameron, you haven't seen Memento, have you?
no, I
Well,
can
it's not
take my
really a
headphones
spoiler.
off
It's
for
not
a
a
second.
spoiler to say no. It's not a
I
spoiler to say that like
Just
Memento
give me a thumbs
basically.
up when you're done.
No, you're fine. I think you're fine to stay.
Okay.
The way that Memento is told, like from the beginning, it is
I
told
already
backwards.
know that it's not
It's told
in
backwards.
chronological order.
So
Yeah.
they
okay.
use ways to connect, but it doesn't always quite work enough, and it's like it is very disorienting. I think it overall is fun and interesting, but
I
it's
think
like
there
not
are
a great
holes in it though
movie
as it's going
for
because
sure.
it makes no sense sometimes, but then you're like, oh,
Yes.
but it is backwards. So
So cool. But I think this movie does it maybe one of the top ways that he's ever messed with time in his movies was
right.
this one because I always felt like there was a reason why I was seeing what I was seeing, even though it was not in
Mm.
order. It made sense in terms of why I was seeing it now versus seeing
Well,
it later.
and like the
It
makeup department in this movie does a great job too, and like visually
Yeah,
showing you that like
he's
okay, this
older
he's
now.
Oppenheimer's much
clearly
older in
older.
this
Yeah,
part,
Yeah.
like or Robert Downey Jr. is clearly older in this
yeah.
scene when he was talking to Mr. Einstein. You
I'm
know,
gonna be
it's like
honest with you guys, and you guys, especially Ben, dogged me at the theater when I made this comparison. This movie is The Social Network.
okay,
Okay? It is. It's literally his life and told through the case of like 3 court cases.
and
All
you're
right.
right. Okay, so congratulations, get a cookie
Yeah.
or something,
And
whatever. It'll be
it's
your 20th of
yeah.
the day. So either
All
way,
right.
that fat joke was uncalled for, and I'm so sorry. Uh, anyways, um, so uh, talking about the movie,
Ben derailed himself.
I derailed, I derailed myself. So talking about the Oppenheimer movie, in the second act of like them testing the bomb
Yeah.
is so intense,
Mm.
and the whole, especially the countdown, but even before the countdown, they do such a good job at like these scientists are like kind of clueless almost like from the looks in their face they're just doing whatever Oppenheimer is telling them to do and just be like he's like make it blow up type thing, but like the fact that they said like that there's a chance that it literally like destroys the world and they
Well,
still went with it
well,
is
like a huge theme of like a huge like recurring part of the movie is that all these theorists that are having to take this theory and put it into reality, and they don't exactly 100% know what's going to happen because they've never done it before. That's why it's theory. So it's like, yeah, all the math checks out, but it's all theoretical. So until we actually do it in the real world, we have no idea exactly what's going to happen for sure. And that like
right.
fear, they're all afraid. Like they're legit. Like the scene where they blow up the first test bomb, like all of them are afraid. And is that is pretty powerful because this whole movie you're seeing them as experts. They're the ones that know what's going on. They're in charge. They're smart, and then they're all terrified in this moment. You're
Right.
like, oh no.
Not even before the first test bomb where they
Yeah.
blow up the like tiny grenade when they're behind cover.
Oh yeah.
Matt Damon's character's like, well, we were way too like, he's like
Yeah.
freaking out at like the fact that they were way too
And
close.
he was great. I don't think we mentioned it very much. He was
No,
so good in this
he
movie.
plays such a good supporting role in a sense where
Yeah.
it's like he's not stealing every scene, but he is so like, I mean, he is good. He is like a kind of a brick wall in a sense that like opens up a little bit to Oppenheimer
Sure.
and is like a great resistance to our main character that we need, but also at the end of the day does support him at the end, which is like super satisfying to watch.
Yeah.
But like the whole test scene of them like, you know, it's dark out, they all got their, you know, solar eclipse glasses
Except for
on,
that one guy.
except for the one guy. I thought,
The
did
one guy
anyone else
behind
think
the
his like eyes were gonna get burnt out and the guy in the hill was gonna die? Did anyone else
I
think
thought
that?
I thought the guy in the car was gonna get like shredded by the glass, and then I
Oh,
thought the
okay.
dude who kept
Oh,
turning around was gonna like melt.
we're
This
all
isn't
little
Indiana
kids.
Jones.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's just like no, but like the whole countdown is so like we know how it ends. That's the crazy thing is
And
like
it still
we
is
know it
tense.
exactly. It's like
Yeah.
him shaking his hand about to push the button, and then like and then Miranda Cosgrove pushes it. And he goes, Megan, Megan.
The fact that it could make me, a person who is alive today on a world that it's not on fire, question if this bomb is going to make the world catch on fire.
Ugh,
Like it's
Yeah.
amazing.
I think we
it
need to
really
talk
is.
about the scene in the auditorium. Is that so like me and so I talked with a couple of my friends that are big
Yeah.
Nolan fans and we all kind of agreed that was the best scene of the movie. Did you guys think that was the best scene when he's giving the speech in the auditorium?
Oh, the like church isn't it wasn't at a church or something?
Well,
The
I think it's a multi-purpose building. So
Yeah.
because there's a basketball hoop and
That's
like
true. There was
so
a basketball hoop
I
there.
think there's like auditorium slash church slash rec area, whatever, because they had to buid this in like 5 minutes. So
It's that or the court scene at the end is like one of my
with
favorites.
Malik and RDJ in that scene or the one.
Okay, well that's in two. I'm thinking like when the freaking guy is like yelling at him and then all the
Oh
lights
yes,
are
when
flashing and I'm like
yes,
having a panic
when
attack
he's
and I'm
freaking out.
peeing
Okay,
everywhere.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. Those three
So
scenes were probably the best three scenes of the
those scenes
movie, but
complement each
whatever.
other really well.
Yeah, because all of them, in two of the three of them, Oppenheimer is like you see into his psyche, and he's like kind of losing his mind, and it makes you think, okay, like is he wrong? Is he like is he the bad guy,
right.
or am I? What's happening here? And because you see into his mind is just chaos, and so you're just like, okay, what's going on here? But just having him in that moment, I thought it was so good that they didn't lean too heavily into the trauma of the bombings and
Yeah.
but also did show that he is picturing this and he can't get it out of his head, even though he knows he has to be the rah, go America guy in this
Right.
moment and give this big rousing speech. In his mind, he's like losing it over the fact that he just killed so many people in a pretty horrifying manner. And he knows exactly what's going on because he did all the science behind it. He helped,
Right.
was one of the people who did all the science behind it. So it isn't just like, oh, they blew up real quick. It's like, no, this is what happened. I know what happened to them because I know the science behind it. That was so powerful. And to have him acting, that's the scene I was mentioning earlier, where he's acting two different ways in terms of his speech is very like callous, like making jokes about, oh, I wish we could have, like, I wish we could have bombed the Nazis, like, and cracking
Yeah.
jokes about killing more people while he's in his mind seeing the death and destruction, and like his
Right.
face is expressing morbid, like just absolute trauma.
It's
That was so
such a
powerful.
it's such a genius way to depict like an actual anxiety attack and like a
Sure,
panic
yeah.
attack because like it, it's as someone that struggles with anxiety because I have bombed a few places like bathrooms in specific
Oh my god.
like I guys I got all these jokes written right here no but like the fact that it's like yeah you're not like depict it's in your mind and it's the only thing you can really concentrate on and it actually becomes like it is the spotlight of what you're focusing on and everything else is just like in the background in a weird
Yeah,
way and it's
yeah,
like it's such a good way to put us in the shoes of Oppenheimer even though like they make us feel bad for the guy that indirectly killed thousands of people. And well, a whole theme of the movie too is like if he didn't do it, someone else would have. And it's like a way to kind of justify him in a sense. Like, and that's
Sure.
up for debate too, like
Sure.
politically, even if you want to talk about that. I don't know. To me, I think that's just a great way to like depict the anxiety that he has because it does become very frequent. Not frequent, but it becomes like it's definitely
Recurring.
revisited at the end of the
Yeah.
movie where
Yeah.
like he starts also
Well, I mean, one of the first scenes he has, one of the first scenes of the whole movie, he clearly has some anxiety, right? So it's
yeah,
like an issue he's dealing with the whole entire movie, anyways.
right. It's like a mentally unstable man designs one of the most powerful weapons in the whole universe, and then it's like, you know what I mean? It's gonna make me things worse.
Yeah.
But
It's some of the best sound editing like I've seen in a
I was gonna say
long
this
time.
the stomping too of like the whole
Oh,
stadium
Yeah.
and how that is like in the theme from the beginning. And yeah,
What
it's
stuck
so
out to
good.
me was when all the cheering stops, like the last thing you hear is like like the last like millisecond is like a scream. And like it's so
Yeah.
like perfect.
yeah,
It
Um,
really is.
it's killer.
yeah.
And I will say to backtrack a bit, we're not or backpedal a bit, we're not gonna be here for long. So keep the seatbelts buckled. But the whole scene where they let off the bomb, did anyone else get jump scared by the stupid explosion coming in at the end? Because
No, but
I did. I jumped a little bit because I
someone,
was
I think it was maybe Carson or someone near me did jump, and I laughed at them. But yes, because there was a hesitation, so I get why. But it just, I
right.
don't know why it didn't get me though.
We had a big group, I'm sure some of us did. Well, can't all right. I think David forgot we were saying it with a big group because he started yelling at other people.
No,
Not yelling, but like
I
just
know. Well, I can be a little bit much. So I
like they're in our seats.
no, the thing was I knew it was a big group. I just didn't know it was that big. I didn't know it was the entire row. And I didn't see Riley and the two people next to Riley, I didn't recognize. Well, one of them was, I think one of them was your brother, Cameron, and
Yeah.
I didn't immediately know who he was, and I didn't know the other kid at all. And to me he's probably like 18, like half my age. So I
Not
didn't know
even.
him.
He's
So
younger.
I
He's
oh
younger.
really? Okay. So I didn't know him at all, and I didn't recognize your brother for whatever reason. And then I kind of saw Riley. I was like, I think that's Riley, but I don't know why he's way over here with these random people. So I was like, guys, you're in our seats. And then they're like, yeah, we know. Like, oh, okay.
I was like, we all have like, yeah, whatever.
I didn't get it. I just didn't think about it.
We figured it
Yeah,
out.
when my brother
Anyways,
finally stopped crying, I think he really enjoyed the movie.
Like that old man yelled at me.
David took his popcorn, snacks, and drink too. It's like, take your seats, taking your snacks.
Fine.
So Karen, the crying that you heard at the end of the scene was actually just Eli and Chase
Still recover.
because and Riley because the candy and stuff was gone, and David was just laughing and eating it. No. Anyways, so we have like after the explosion, Hiroshima's announced, and what's the other place? I'm terrible.
Nagasaki.
Like in a city,
Nagasaki.
yeah, Nagasaki.
I had to I had to be careful. So,
Totally
Nagasaki.
unfun fact. There was a guy who survived the bombing of Hiroshima, moved to Nagasaki, and
Oh,
survived that bombing
oh
too.
my gosh. Well,
Mm,
at least he
well,
survived, but that's crazy.
Yeah,
that is
I think he's like the only
crazy.
person to survive both.
We need to like get a blood sample of him because that is like the super soldier.
Does he have
I don't
does he
think
have
he's
an
around
adamantium
anymore.
skeleton?
He is Logan. It's Logan. Uh, but so like the final hour of the film, I say it's my favorite, and I'm a sucker for courtroom genres. I love Daredevil. I love Social Network. I think the fact that you can make such a suspenseful and entertaining scene when literally people are just sitting down and talking, I think it's amazing if it can be pulled off. And Nolan did
Judge
it so
Judy.
well. Judge Judy. Uh, uh,
Classic.
her reveal in this movie was crazy. But no, so uh you have what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so Oppenheimer is on trial to
Well,
basically see if they will allow like pass his it's not on because it's not a trial, it's like
yeah.
a briefing to see if they'll give him a security pass
It's a
to come
security
back.
board for
Yeah.
like giving him like security clearance for like government stuff, basically.
and to like let him work on more bombs, because the whole other thing is like we're not the only ones creating them, because Heisenberg, so like yeah, so Walter White is in Germany and he's like they don't know what is going on over there, but so they're like worried on what Heisenberg's doing, because like Oppenheimer even said he was a genius and he was the smartest man he knew, and it's
Yeah.
scary because he was on the other side in a sense. Well, because the movie also delves into like, is he a communist? Is he, it's like they're throwing everything at Oppenheimer when, and like I don't know his true motives. I don't know, you know what I mean? I think that he was just a scientist and he was just trying to learn as much as he could. I don't know. He's clearly a manipulative guy, I would say. So it wouldn't
Yeah.
surprise me if he like lied his way to becoming like, saying yes, he was a communist to
No,
get
he
here.
he does have like that's what those parties were at the start. He had direct links to communism and his
Oh, I
early
see.
life. That's who Florence Pugh was. She was a
Yeah.
Oh,
communist.
Yeah.
also, did he kill her? Am I just
No.
stupid?
So
Because
no.
I
So
saw a
the
I
glove
saw a
behind her
hand.
head.
Yeah.
no. So this is there's like a historical backstory to that. So there's no 100%. We don't know for sure if she died by suicide or if she was killed by the government.
Yeah.
So the
What?
reason
That's why
why,
it looks like they
so
shot it both ways.
they did show it both ways. So like the first time you see a hand like force her head into the bathtub water, and then the next time she just like slowly sinks into it of her own will, and it's like all kind of jumbled together. So you're not sure what's happening because we don't know what exactly happened, because they think that
Oh.
maybe they killed her to get to him somehow, maybe, or
Or if they
also
thought
because
that he
she
was
also was a known communist. So like
she
it
was
wasn't
a
like we
known
didn't
communist that
target
he was like
communists.
having frequent interactions
Well,
with.
they were following him, so they knew
Yeah.
that he was with her a lot or whatever. So
That makes sense. Okay. That's weird. That's crazy.
yeah,
Well then that's because I just thought he killed her and I was like, okay.
no, 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 no,
Uh
no. Then
uh
he definitely is more of a villain. Then yeah,
but well then that's neat. I like how they
He
did that.
did
I
try
didn't
to
even
kill the teacher at the start.
yeah, that was
But
yeah,
yeah,
well
because
that's why
that's
I was like,
true.
that's why I didn't think it was far off. Is like I guess if so I don't know, if someone's getting in his way that is gonna like prevent him from succeeding, then he's gonna like do whatever he does. But also he saved the guy at the end, or the guy, whatever.
Yeah,
Um But also the dude just had a random like vial of cyanide in his
it was, I mean,
drawer with no
he was a
lock.
chemistry teacher, right?
I guess. I don't
yeah.
know. Anyways, so the courtroom scene. Uh I find where this is the best writing in the whole movie, where like I understood probably 99% of what was going on, whereas other throughout the movie I was like still having a hard time of like, oh, they're referring to this, like, oh, this is happening now. Whereas like we understand the true motives of Robert Downey Jr.'s character, so that like makes so much sense. And Robert Downey Jr. steps into this really good villain role that I didn't know I needed. And it's just like it's a battle of who the worst person is, because like you're cheering for a guy who created the atomic bomb and you're also like rooting against the guy that is trying to out him,
Well, the
but
thing is,
also
it's not that that okay. It
Yeah,
is
because
he
it's also
Oppenheimer at
like
this point in his life is going around trying to prevent the construction of the H bomb,
yeah, it's changed a
and
little bit.
he is using his government clearance to have like specific things to point at and be like, look at this. This is a reason why we shouldn't build this. And so Strauss, which is Robert Downey Jr.,
right,
that's bad for his political career, and so he's trying to get that stopped. So like Robert Downey Jr. is really like, I want to be this guy in politics because that's really important and everyone will remember me.
mm-hmm.
I don't even know who that position was held by, and who actually got it, So I
Yeah,
don't
the
think
actual
even if he
cabinet.
made it, it would have been that good for history. Like,
Wasn't it JFK? No, no, it wasn't.
no,
JFK
dude.
was the deciding vote.
Yeah, man. When they were like Marvel announced JFK, like, and
Just name
the
dropped him in
deciding
there.
vote to make you not
Was
whatever,
Kennedy, John F.
some
Kennedy.
young senator, JFK,
Yeah,
like the theater went crazy and everyone, dude.
Rogers, Steve Rogers.
The Albert
Is that
every
Tony
reveal
Stank?
every reveal for Einstein felt like it was like so intense. Like you guys have
Yeah.
seen the
That's
Kingsman reveal for Hitler when they
yes.
reveal him. Have you seen that, David? It
Yeah.
felt like that each time like Einstein was like he would like turn around and it's
Literally,
like what?
a car pulls away, and out from the night, Einstein walks up.
Also like the most accurate Einstein like impersonator I've ever seen. I like it
Yeah,
just looked like I mean okay anyways uh the whole scene of like him reaching wit's end with I think Jason Clark was the actor, I forget his
Yeah.
name. Yeah. Like reaching his wit's end with him and like the whole beams of light shining on the face and it's just like ah, I think it's so genius. I think it's just perfect storytelling and I absolutely love every single performance at the end of this movie like so much.
Yeah.
yeah. Rami Malek needs a blanket though.
He does. He was too cold. Well, he gave a cold answer too.
Ooh.
Other
uh,
than that, though, I
the how do you guys feel about the pacing?
I think the pacing is incredible. I think that like the thing was it's a 3 hour movie, and how I've been describing it to people that ask me was like, "Oh, is it does it feel like 3 hours? Did you feel the length? Were you really tired by the end of watching these two movies back to back and spending so much time in the theater?" And basically said, Oppenheimer is 70 minutes, I think, longer than Barbie, and it didn't feel like it was more than maybe a half an hour longer than Barbie.
right.
I think that's due to the pacing. I think that the pacing keeps you invested and interested because the subject matter, like from a plot point of view, isn't as gripping as many of Nolan's other movies in terms of like action and sci-fi stuff and crazy visuals. And so this movie is keeping you invested through very good acting, very good writing, and good pacing. I think keeps it so that
Yeah.
you're not waiting too long and you're getting like, "Well, this is kind of taking forever to get going." You're always moving forward. I think that's a big reason why the 3 hour time doesn't feel like it's 3 hours to me.
I think
I
the
think
start of the movie is like the fastest it is. Like
They're
when we're
flying through his life
it,
in the beginning. Yeah.
it
well,
is
oh,
almost
yeah,
feel
okay,
the beginning of the
perfect.
movie almost feels like it was written by Baz Luhrmann. Like
Yes. Oh my
yes,
gosh.
because it's just like jumping around so quickly and there's like 100 things. And what the way it's able to get away with that is because it sticks with that subjective viewpoint of Oppenheimer. And
Sure.
so all these people around him, they seem sometimes they seem underdeveloped. And one thing I keep piggybacking off of a particular review that I saw, I think it was Shea Frillis, but he talked about how it was originally jarring for him that his wife goes from a like a happy normal wife to an alcoholic off screen, and then you realize that's kind of the point, right? Like
That's his perspective.
it's
Yeah.
his perspective. He just comes home one day and she's an alcoholic, and the fact that he doesn't really give it a second thought, first of all, explains why she's an alcoholic, and second of all, it keeps the movie going because you get
Yeah.
to see these people
Yeah.
around him, but you don't really sit with them
Yeah.
and stuff
It's
like.
it's so funny. So I like you said, I think like I said, my only issue with the movie is the beginning. It could just be because I'm too stupid because I did not understand much until after I saw the movie. And had to look up stuff about it. But I felt like it was almost too quick for me because like it will be 5 scenes ahead for me to finally understand. Oh, I understand scenes 1 and 2, and I understand Nolan movies kind of work like that in a sense where like obviously I'm not going to have every single answer at the beginning, but it's almost so hard for me of the constant editing back and forth where like I don't know who I said this to, maybe Riley, where like the conversations in the beginning of the movie are so inhuman in a sense because someone like we're having a conversation now, someone would say something and it takes like a second for there to be a response, whereas people say something and immediately cuts to someone answering him and boom cuts back to someone. I know you probably haven't seen the movie, but it reminded me of similar like to Amsterdam's editing and how conversations would work. But I think as I
Except like
started
except it didn't work. That's in Amsterdam. That was
no, true. But I will say, like, after like the first hour, I felt like I was able to understand more and more of the movie, and it made more sense to me, and I was able to kind of keep up with the fast pace of the editing. But like, I that's just my complaint. I don't really like see
Yeah.
that as like a fault that the movie has, whereas like I'm just a slow learner.
I
So
think
Well,
your
this is a
understanding. You got
sorry,
it.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Okay. I think this is my analogy, okay, or my comparison, I guess, for myself. So I think it's a fair criticism. Have you guys seen The Princess Bride?
Yes,
Yes, Cameron,
I've
you've
built
seen
up
it,
I've
I've
seen it
built
a
up an
bunch.
immunity. I've built up an immunity to this kind of stuff by watching every Nolan movie all the time. So it's like, like how he builds up an immunity to the poison. He poisons both the
yeah,
goblets.
right,
Like I'm like, yeah, it's probably not the best filmmaking, but I wouldn't even notice that until you guys brought it up
right,
because to me it's like this isn't how Nolan does stuff. Right or wrong, I'm not here to say it's good or bad. I think that like it works for most of the movie,
yeah,
but I can see the beginning of being too much. The message that I subliminally, I was sitting here thinking like, why didn't that bother me really? And I think the message that I get from the movie, number one, since Tenet, this is kind of how I've realized that Nolan feels. And there's a line in Tenet, like in the movie, something along the lines of, "Don't worry about understanding it. It's all about the feel." And that's what his when things get too messy in his movies and too confusing, the message that I get from him is don't try to figure it all out. Just like feel it and move
hmm
on. Which
true,
some people hate that. And my wife is like, I want to understand it. I don't want to be like told to ignore it and move on. I want to understand it. We watched Mission
hmm
Impossible, the new one, and she enjoyed it. And she was like, this made no sense. And this, she's trying to like get all the answers. I'm like, isn't it,
I love that movie too. I think it's
it
great.
isn't that kind of movie though. Don't pick it apart because it will fall apart. Just enjoy the
Right,
fun.
Yeah,
So, and I think that's kind of his thing is like the message that I got from the first hour of this movie is this is important because it builds a foundation of Oppenheimer for the rest of the movie. However, it is not so important that we're going to stay here for very long. We're going to keep moving and just get through it
right.
so you get the foundation, but we don't need to spend forever here. And so just don't worry if you miss something, it will probably won't matter.
Yeah, I
right,
think it works in a similar way to the most recent and best example I'd say is Succession. Most people who watch Succession are not going to understand the business terminology getting thrown around, but you
right,
understand what it means, right? You don't necessarily know what a bear hug is, but you know that if Kendall bear hugs Logan, it's bad for Logan and good for Kendall, right?
mm,
You get the concept and you
Sure.
get what the characters want, not necessarily specifically, but generally. So if you don't
Yeah,
know, you don't know how important plutonium is for this, well, let's put marbles in a fishbowl. When this is full,
true.
that's good. So like it breaks it down, I think, clear enough so that even though I don't understand the science, most people aren't going to understand the science. We can understand what the characters are going for in a general sense.
yeah. That's a good way to say it.
Yeah, good job. All right, well,
Thanks,
I
man.
mean, to be honest, I've got nothing else to
I think we're
say.
good. I mean,
I think to like kind of push us to the end, um, since we are the number one movie podcast that stars Cameron and Ben in Indiana, we have to talk about a few things where like I think we can expect this movie to get tons of awards, or at least
Yes.
nominated for tons of awards. Will it win? Who knows? Whether it's plenty of time till the end of the year. Of course, though, there is the strike going on, so just pay your writers, pay your actors, like so we can watch movies. It's so
please.
stupid. Like if A24 did it, which is an
Yeah.
indie company, and
A24 and
Disney's having a hard time doing it.
a lot of indie companies have got to, I
Wow.
think. I think I read somewhere, do not quote me. Yeah, just like Ben, don't quote him on the incorrect thing that he said earlier about Japan banning this movie. Don't quote me on this, but I heard that like 14 indie studios are back up and running again
Awesome.
because
It's
they've
crazy because like we're not gonna because Karen and I are gonna have a video on this or
Yeah.
already have a video on who knows.
no, remember
But
your
like
bit made this the first one to come out since the break.
all right,
Yeah.
okay. Well, it's yeah, just like why can't these big movie studios that are literally making bill Oppenheimer is making the studio so much money,
Hmm.
and the fact that they cannot pay their writers enough and their actors enough is so frustrating to see because I enjoy going to the movies. The movies are such a big part in my life. We make a podcast about them, Cameron, and the fact that
Yeah.
like it's a
But I only do
possibility
this
that
for the
like
money. I only do this for the money.
we make so much doing this.
Yeah, but
Uh,
not from the companies is
Not
where,
from
yeah,
Oppenheimer's not paying us to
exact.
do this though.
The views
And we
may
wouldn't have
might make you
taken the
think
money.
otherwise, but
And we would not have
yeah.
taken the money. Anyways,
Um, about the
Killian
Oscars,
Murphy.
I do want to talk about. We don't have to go super in depth, but do you guys think this is getting any Oscars and which ones? I would say
It's
Killian Murphy is pretty much locked in.
I would
I
hope we get best supporting for RDJ.
I think RDJ. I think it's like a similar thing to Jamie Lee Curtis, where it's like a staple in Hollywood. I think it's RDJ's time. It's him or Ryan Gosling,
The
whichever one.
difference,
I
the
would love to see
difference
them.
between this and Jamie Lee Curtis is even though both of those actors deserved Oscars for their careers, RDJ deserves an Oscar for this movie. I don't think Jamie Lee
Right.
Curtis deserved that Oscar for specifically that movie,
Yeah.
but that's the past.
And I will say, ending it, wrapping it up, it's very fun that Barbie and Oppenheimer both handled toxic masculinity in different ways. And I never thought I'd be saying that ever, and I don't think I'll ever say it again. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So
Do you
good
want
to
to?
know.
What was the? I obviously don't want to get too far into this. I feel like we'll talk more in depth about this in our Barbie review over on That Shady Buffalo. Did you enjoy the Barbieheimer experience?
I mean, to find that out, you got to listen to the episode. That's my
There you
that's
go.
my answer.
And
Yeah, I think we can do that.
if you're over here after listening to that one, it's a perfect loop. You got to
You
start the other one
already
back over.
it never ends. You go back and
Yeah.
forth.
Yep.
And you can't rewind. You just gotta you gotta start. You gotta listen to it.
Or you can put it in reverse. Like the
Yeah.
true way to listen to the
We actually
podcast.
at a random time there is a hidden message in both episodes that only is revealed if you play it in reverse. So you gotta listen to both and backwards to find out.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, David, thank you so much for being on this episode. As
You're
always,
welcome.
I know I was bugging you with with text and be like, "Hey, you should really be like, we really need content. We need someone that knows what they're doing.
It's been
Please get over
41
here."
Oh
days,
yeah.
please.
Sure. Yeah.
But no, it's an honor to have you in our presence once again. Tell us what's going on in your famous life.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. As the special guest who definitely is well known and famous all across I don't know, nowhere. Um Honestly, right now it's pretty dead. Other than the fact that by the time this comes out, Survivor Indianapolis season 4 will be airing in the middle of
What?
airing.
Wow.
Yeah. By the time, so like we're recording
I
the
don't know if I
week.
won or not. Did I play
No,
in that?
no,
I'm
you
just
didn't play
kidding. I'm
that
just
one.
kidding. I'm
That was
just
the year before. That was the year before. So yeah, that'll be coming out on Thursdays on YouTube, Survivor Indianapolis. Really excited for the content on this one. I had a lot more to edit from, more footage. We just did a better job overall of getting people who were willing and able to do a good job, more people to video, and I have a better grasp on what it means to edit video and not just like throw it all together. I'm learning slowly but surely, so I
Right.
think it'll be better.
It's awesome.
Other than that, though, the podcast side of things is other than the fact that we have a great Barbie episode for you to listen to, that stuff's starting to kind of slow down just a little bit. It's just the time of life that I'm in right now with school hopping back up. It's become harder to find time, but we will um after the Barbie episode and after this episode, we will have a Christopher Nolan episode where we go through. Well, it'll probably be 2 episodes where we're going to go through every Nolan movie. Not nearly this detailed as we did here. So, but we will cover his entire filmography, all 12 movies that he has directed. I'm excited for that. But other than that, not really much has happened on the
Nice.
podcast front. So check it out. There's old episodes if you haven't seen any of those. If one of the titles strikes your fancy, then give it a listen. Let me know what you think. But other than that, that's all that's happening for me right now.
Awesome. I will say I absolutely love your Survivor content that you post. I had a blast playing in the season, but I
Yeah,
also really just enjoyed like watching the episodes come out.
yeah.
And just like your anything Survivor related with you and Alex reacting to the seasons, it's very fun watching a new person be exposed to
It's
the
been
world of
really cool to
Survivor
see him.
and the
Yeah.
like hilariosity of some of the seasons. But like looking back, you don't realize how insane some of these things were, and you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe like they would never
This.
do this now.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
But
Yeah. So
I
that's been fun to
absolutely
do.
enjoy it. Also, John Crabtree, your co-host, is also hilarious. Give him a shout out. He just got married.
Yeah.
He's killing it in life.
Yeah. His name is now John Crabtree after the marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get it because the guy doesn't change their name.
Okay. So well,
Speaking of
they
toxic
can.
masculinity.
Sir, bro, you need to watch Barbie, okay? Because no, and Killian Murphy, thank you so much. I know we had
I'm
Ryan
Irish.
Gosling. Ryan Gosling joined us for the Barbie episode, so just like or Michael Cera, I don't know whichever one he's choosing. But
Go watch and
um,
find out.
Watch and find out, because we already know. Either way, this episode's gone on way too long. Yeah, we'll just boom.
Yeah, cool.
Great job.
Amazing.